Good morning and welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are the latest headlines. Prime Minister arrives in Mozambique on first leg of four-nation tour of Africa. Focus on cooperation in areas of hydrocarbons, maritime security and trade. Centre hints at action against controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik, says his speech is a matter of concern. Bangladesh asks India to examine teachings with the Dhaka attacker emerging as his follower. US sanctions North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for the first time, accuses him of human rights abuses. 10 other top North Korean officials blacklisted. And war veterans and families of slain British soldiers demand trial for former Prime Minister Tony Blair over Iraq war. US inquiry report says Blair took country into an illegal war in 2003. And Roger Federer, Andy Murray, Milos Raonic and Thomas Berdych enter Wimbledon men's semi-finals. The Williams sisters to battle their challengers today for a berth in the final. Well, our top focus this morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Mozambique capital today on the first leg of his four-nation Africa tour, while the Prime Minister will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at 1 p.m. He will later hold bilateral talks with Mozambique President Filipe Nyusi. The meeting will be followed by signing of agreements between the two sides. Prime Minister Modi will also meet the President of the Mozambique National Assembly later in the day. Later, he will visit the Centre for Innovation and Technological Development and interact with students as well. He will end the day with an interaction with the Indian community. The Prime Minister will then leave for South Africa.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to African nations will be an attempt to secure their natural resources for India. Accordingly, oil, gas, minerals, food and security will be the focus of his talks with leaders. India is expecting to finalize a deal to import 1 million tons of pulses with Mozambique.
But Mozambique is also the destination for nearly a quarter of the Indian investments in Africa, nearly $8 billion. And this involves a range of major PSUs. Some of these investments made by ICVL, this is a special special purpose vehicle which was created.
The India-Africa Forum Summit earlier this year, followed by visits by President Pranab Mukherjee and Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari to some African nations, underline the importance that India is attaching to the continent.
So we are looking at really consolidating the gains that we have made at the IAFS. And that is why these visits were planned this year. And you would note that I said that this was the first half of the year. So we don't yet have the full calendar for the second half. So you wouldn't be surprised that some more visits would come up, both outgoing and actually several incoming visits also that are being looked at.
After Mozambique, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will reach South Africa. On 8th and 9th of July, he will meet President Jacob Zuma and other senior officials. The talks are likely to center around deepening a geopolitical and strategic relationship, especially with reference to energy, the UN Security Council and BRICS.
We have actually a 5-year-old CEOs forum which will be meeting, which has the top 20 CEOs from India and their counterparts from Africa. They would be meeting, and the leaders would be addressing an enlarged business meet.
The next stage of the visit will take the Prime Minister to Tanzania and Kenya. On 10th of July, Modi is expected to meet Tanzanian Prime Minister John Pombe. The discussions are expected to revolve around energy and the solar power initiative.
We have this program called Training of Solar Mamas. Solar Mamas are these grandmothers from villages who are brought by Barefoot College. So he will also be meeting a group of 40 or so solar mamas from different parts of Africa, which Barefoot College has sort of trained. We are also actually funding setting up of one of the Barefoot College centers in Tanzania.
On 10th of July itself, Modi will reach Kenyan capital Nairobi, where his meetings with various leaders will focus on strategic issues, tourism, sports and cooperation in education. During his Africa tour, Prime Minister Modi will also address the Indian diaspora in each of the nations. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, back home, the centre has indicated that it could take action against controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik, who was followed by one of the 5 Bangladeshi militants who carried out the Dhaka carnage. The Minister of State for Home, Kiren Rijiju, has said that Naik's speeches is a matter of concern for the government and the agencies are working on it. The government's stand came after Bangladesh asked India to examine Naik's speeches, saying that his teachings are not in line with Quranic teachings. Now, Dhaka says it is investigating how much of Naik's teachings influenced the terrorists. Naik, a popular but controversial Islamic orator and also the founder of Mumbai-based Islamic Research Foundation, is banned in the UK and Canada for his hate speech aimed against other religions. He is also among 16 banned Islamic scholars in Malaysia.
It's not wise on the part of a minister to make an announcement that what actions are likely to be taken. These are a matter of law, and the agencies who are dealing with the issues will take appropriate action. We will give all kind of support whatsoever in matter related to dealing with terrorism.
And the central government employees unions have deferred their proposed indefinite strike from 11th of July by 4 months. The threat of strike was against the 7th pay panel's recommendations. Now, the move to delay the strike came after the government agreed to set up a high-level committee to look into their grievances. Well, the government's decision came after representatives of the unions met Home Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday. The committee will now look into issues raised by various unions involving pay scales and other recommendations of the 7th Pay Commission. The meeting was also their second with the government on the issue. Earlier, they had met the group of ministers chaired by Singh on 30th of June. The GMOM also includes Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and Railway Minister Suresh Prabhu. The National Joint Council of Action is an umbrella organization of various central government employees unions, including Railways, Post and Telegraph and Defence. Now, nearly a year after the Namami Ganga program was announced, the centre will today launch 231 projects along the bank of River Ganga. Well, the program is to clean and protect the 2,500-kilometre long river and ensuring its unfettered flow. Well, the entry-level project activities include ghat and crematorium construction, river front beautification, installation and repair of sewage treatment plants, and also other works will be launched simultaneously from over 104 locations, initially in all 5 basic states of the Ganga. Meanwhile, the government has also lined up 1,000 projects in different states, including the national capital Delhi, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal as part of the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Now, Union Ministers Nitin Gadkari, Uma Bharti, Narendra Tomar and Mahesh Sharma will launch the project in Haridwar during an event which will also be attended by Uttarakhand Chief Minister Harish Rawat, and the second phase of the project will begin by 2018 October. On to some other news now. India and Sri Lanka have agreed to have a meeting between the ministers for the fisheries of the two countries at the earliest in a bid to finding a permanent solution to the fishermen issue. Now, this was discussed between External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and visiting Sri Lankan Minister for Development Strategy and International Trade, Malika Samaravikramewa. The Lankan minister was on a 2-day visit from 4th of July. Now, the two leaders also discussed ways to create an enabling environment for the Indian industry to invest in Sri Lanka and also reviewed the status of various projects, including the Sampur power plant rehabilitation of Palal airfield as well as Kanke Santhurai harbour. Now, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha has been repeatedly writing to the centre to address the issue. And on to some weather update. And the weather department has said that the southwest monsoon has shown a marginal rise of 1%. Now, several parts of the country received various degrees of rain. The southwest monsoon rainfall has shown a marginal rise of 1% with a good amount of precipitation in several parts of the country for the period between 1st of June and 6th of July. All regions except the northeast and East India region are currently witnessing a deficiency. The monsoons brought heavy rain in Madhya Pradesh, with Satna receiving 245 millimeters of rain in a span of 9 hours. Heavy rains lashed several parts of Himachal Pradesh on Wednesday, causing significant fall in temperature. The Met Department has forecast rains and thunderstorm at many places on Thursday. Heavy rains are also expected in isolated places of Uttar Pradesh, where light to moderate rain and thunder showers are recorded at most places. Meanwhile, 6 districts in Rajasthan have received above normal rains, with the state on the whole recording excess rains so far.
बिहार, ईस्ट यूपी, छत्तीसगढ़ ये मिलाकर ये कंसंट्रेट कर रहा है और इन सब जगहों में भारी बारिश कहीं-कहीं होने की संभावना है.
The death toll due to torrential rains in Uttarakhand has risen to 21, with another body being found in Chamoli district. Meanwhile, 3 people were killed in Bihar on Tuesday and as many injured in 2 separate incidents of lightning strike. Traces of rainfall were also recorded in the national capital, with the maximum temperature at 31.6 degrees Celsius on Wednesday. The weather department has predicted light rain or drizzle for Thursday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. News from the national capital, and Arvind Kejriwal's principal secretary Rajendra Kumar has been suspended by the government after his arrest by the CBI in corruption case. Now, the PTI has quoted a Home Ministry official as saying that any government servant deemed to be automatically suspended 48 hours after his or her arrest in any case. Now, Kumar, a 1989 batch IS officer of UD cadre, was called along with Tarun Sharma, a deputy secretary in Kejriwal's office, besides 3 other private persons, for questioning at the CBI headquarters on Monday morning. After being questioned for half a day, the CBI decided to place the 2 officers under arrest along with the close aide of Kumar, Ashok Kumar, and owners of a private firm Sandeep Kumar and Dinesh Gupta. The CBI had registered a case against Kumar and others in December last year, alleging that the officer had abused his official position by favouring a particular firm in the last few years in getting tenders of the Delhi government departments. And in News at 10, we'll take a very short break. We'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
Welcome to this episode of Eureka. We have with us Professor Dibakar Banerjee.
After the Mars mission success, ISRO has been more and more confident and adventurous. Aditya is the first dedicated space mission from ISRO. Coronagraph essentially again allows you to study the atmosphere of the sample. Lagrangian 1 point, it's actually a position where you could look at the sun continuously.
Watch Eureka with Professor Dibakar Banerjee, astrophysicist from Indian Institute of Astrophysics, only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back after the break. On to the big international story now, and the US has sanctioned North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for the first time, accusing him of human rights abuses. Now, 10 other top North Korean officials have also been blacklisted. While North Korea is already under an extensive sanctions regime for its nuclear activities, now analysts see the latest move as an escalation of US efforts to isolate that nation.
Human rights abuses in the DPRK are among the worst in the world. The government continues to commit extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrest and detention, forced labor, and torture.
The US sanctioning North Korean leader Kim Jong-un personally for the first time. The Obama administration on Wednesday slapped sanctions on Kim and 10 other officials for their alleged complicity in human rights abuses against the North Korean people. The sanctions coincide with a State Department report documenting abuses in North Korea, and they freeze any property the individuals have in the US and prevent US citizens doing business with them. However, Washington admits the sanctions are unlikely to deter Kim.
This is clearly a leader who has resisted many international efforts to curb his provocative behavior and to get him to make the kinds of responsible decisions that he should be making on behalf of his people. But it would send absolutely the wrong message to him and could embolden him to continue these depravities on his own people if you just sit by quietly and say nothing and do nothing and sanction nothing.
The sanctions also extend to 5 North Korean state entities, including the Ministry of People's Security, which the report says oversees labor camps and other detention facilities where torture, execution, rape, starvation and forced labor takes place. Though there has been no reaction so far from North Korea, the developments are likely to increase tension in the Korean peninsula as they coincide with South Korean and US Marine troops conducting joint military training at a port near Seoul.
한미 해병대는 한미 동맹의 최선봉에 위치한 가장 강력한 부대로서 우리나라 안보를 위협하는 적의 어떠한 위협에도 강력하게 응징할 준비가 완료되어 있습니다.
North Korea is already subject to heavy US as well as UN sanctions for its past nuclear and missile activity. But Wednesday's action marks for the first time regime officials have been sanctioned for human rights abuses. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And the UK inquiry report into the 2003 Iraq war is out, and it has been scathing in its remarks on the action taken by the then Prime Minister Tony Blair. Well, the report blames Blair for leading the country into an illegal and ill-prepared war. Now, Blair says he took the decision to go to the war with a very heavy heart. But the US says that it is still battling the consequences of the invasion. Now, there are protests in Britain by war veterans and the families of slain soldiers who now want Blair tried in court.
It is now clear that policy on Iraq was made on the basis of flawed intelligence and assessments. They were not challenged, and they should have been.
The UK inquiry report on the US-led 2003 Iraq invasion is out. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair now stands accused of leading the UK into an ill-planned, badly executed and illegal war to oust Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. The report kicking up a political storm in Britain.
I believe there are some lessons that we do need to learn and, frankly, keep on learning. First, taking the country to war should always be a last resort and should only be done if all credible alternatives have been exhausted.
The Chilcot report catalogues the failures in planning for post-conflict Iraq and then concludes that, and I quote, the UK did not achieve its objectives. That lack of planning has also been evident in relation to Afghanistan, to Libya, to Syria, and most recently with no plan whatsoever for Brexit.
Tony Blair saying he took the decision with heaviest of hearts, but added the inquiry proves he did not lie or deceive.
Now, the inquiry claims that military action was not a last resort, though it also says it might have been necessary later. With respect, I didn't have the option of that delay. I had to decide. I thought of Saddam, his record, the character of his regime. I thought of our alliance with America, and it's important to us in the post-9/11 world, and I weighed it carefully. I took this decision with the heaviest of hearts.
Anger in Britain as Iraq war veterans and families of the soldiers who died demanding Blair be taken to court.
I'd like to see Tony Blair taken to court. I really would. I really, really would. And hopefully that will happen. I don't know whether it'll be in my lifetime, but hopefully something will be done about this.
I'm very ashamed that we had to take part in something that was so illegal and, so immoral. At the time when I joined the army, I was a very young lad, I was only 18 years old. Ended up in the conflict around 19, I think maybe 20 years old. So, as a child, through a very young person's eyes, you don't really see the injustice. It's very much in retrospect that I saw what had happened. It didn't feel right when I was there, I'm very sad about what we did in Iraq.
The US that led the 2003 invasion, saying the Obama administration has been dealing with the consequences of the Iraq mistakes.
The president's long-standing opposition to the invasion of Iraq is well known and has been extensively litigated. So what is true is that President Obama has been dealing with the consequences of that fateful decision for the entirety of his presidency. Future presidents will likely have to do the same.
Iraq that remains in chaos to this day says the invasion led to threat of terrorism against the whole world.
موقفا ذيليا تبعيا للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية كان يجب على بلير أن لا يذهب بالمنحى الذي ذهب إليه، وكلف هذا الأمر العراقيون ثمنا باهظا كبيرا.
The report has been published 7 years after the inquiry was set up. The invasion and subsequent instability in Iraq had by 2009 resulted in the deaths of at least 150,000 Iraqis, mostly civilians, and displaced more than 1 million. 179 British soldiers were also killed. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And more international news in World Wrap. 7 people have received prison sentences in France for recruiting and training with the fighters of Islamic State in Syria. The 7 were given jail terms ranging from 6 to 9 years. Among them is Karim Mohammed Agad, the brother of one of the militants involved in the attacks in Paris that killed 130 people last November. The Chinese city of Wuhan is on red alert for more heavy rainfall after torrential downpours overnight left parts of the city submerged. Now, transport links and water and power supplies in the city of 10 million people are severely affected, and some residents are trapped in their homes. Flooding has killed more than 180 people and caused chaos across China. US President Barack Obama has announced a slowdown in the US military withdrawal from Afghanistan. While US troop numbers were to be reduced from to 5,500 from the current level of 9,800, Obama says that 8,400 soldiers will stay there into next year to train the Afghan forces and also support operations against Al-Qaeda and other militant groups. House Republicans have called FBI Director Jamie Comey to testify about Hillary Clinton's use of private email as the Secretary of State. Comey will have to explain to a House committee why he recommended the likely Democratic presidential nominee should not be prosecuted. The FBI said over 100 classified messages were found on her email servers. Meanwhile, Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton could receive her rival Bernie Sanders' endorsement next week. The ABC News says that the two campaigns are discussing the matter and the endorsement could come at an event in New Hampshire. Vermont Senator Sanders had said last month that he would vote for the former Secretary of State in the 8th of November elections to stop likely Republican nominee Donald Trump. And another break in here, but after the break we have all the sports news. Stay with us.
The splendid, grand and massive neo-Buddhist copper dome of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. It gets its influence from stupa at Sanchi. The dome is more than twice the height of the rest of the building. The reinforced concrete shell of the outer dome began to be formed during the beginning of 1929. The last stone of the dome was laid on April 6, 1929.
Welcome back. Let's get you all the sporting action now. Let's start with Wimbledon, and Serena Williams will face Russia's Elina Vesnina in the first semi-final today, and sister Venus Williams will take on Germany's Angelique Kerber in the semi-final number 2. Meanwhile, in the women's doubles number 1 seeds, Martina Hingis and Sania Mirza will take on Taimia Bebos and Yaroslava Shlevedova in the quarterfinals. And in the men's doubles, Pierre Hughes Herbert and Nicholas Mahout will play against Tree Tuer and Max Mirny.
This time it's on the other side of the court.
Meanwhile, in the men's singles now, 7-time champion Roger Federer came back from 2 sets down to win a classic against Milos Marin Cilic and advanced into the Wimbledon semi-finals. Federer saved 3 match points in the fourth, breaking Cilic's resistance 6-7, 4-6, 6-3, 7-6, 6-3. Meanwhile, 6th seed Milos Raonic moved into the semi-final with a victory in 4 sets over American Sam Querrey. Raonic sealed the match 6-4, 7-5, 5-7, 6-4 to move into the last 4. He will next face Federer in the semi-final. Meanwhile, 10th seed Thomas Berdych knocked out 32nd seed Lucas Poale in the straight sets 7-6, 6-3, 6-2. He will take on Andy Murray in the second semi-final. Meanwhile, Andy Murray had survived a tremendous fight back from the 12th seed Joe-Wilfried Tsonga to win 7-6, 6-1, 3-6, 4-6, 6-1, and he secured a semi-final berth. He reached his 20th semi-final at a major. Murray will face Thomas Berdych today. And on to action from the Euro Cup. Well, Wales' dream run at the Euros came to an end after they were defeated by Portugal in the semi-final on Wednesday 2-0. Well, Portuguese kicked off the second half with a bang when Ronaldo scored in the 50th minute. They then scored in quick succession with Nani nettled net in the 53rd minute. Meanwhile, Germany will take on France in the other semi-final of the European Championship today in Marseille. Now, this will be the 5th encounter between Germany and France at a major tournament, but first in the European Championships. Now, both the teams met in November 2015. Then France had won 2-0 in a match which was marred by Paris attacks. And Argentina and Barcelona footballer Lionel Messi was sentenced to 21 months in prison and fined $2.2 million for defrauding the Spanish government of $4.5 million between 2007 and 2009. Now, Messi and his father were found guilty on 3 counts of tax fraud in Wednesday's ruling by a court in Barcelona. However, neither of them is expected to serve any jail term, as a prison term of less than 2 years can be served under probation under the Spanish system. Meanwhile, Messi's father has decided to appeal against the sentence, terming it incorrect. Well, time to wrap up this edition of news, but people around the world are celebrating the 3-day Eid al-Fitr festival, which commemorates the end of Islam's holy month of Ramadan. The President, Vice President and the Prime Minister have greeted the people on the eve of Eid al-Fitr, and they have hoped that it will inspire all to follow the path of love and universal brotherhood and will deepen the spirit of harmony and peace in the society. Vice President also offered Eid prayers in Delhi. We leave you with these visuals. Thanks so much for watching.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम अस्सलाम ईद का है यारों ये प्याम ये ईद का त्योहार है खुशियों का है त्योहार ये ईद का त्योहार है खुशियों का है त्योहार ना तेरा है ना मेरा है ये सबका है त्योहार ये प्यार का पैगाम है ये प्यार का पैगाम मुबारक ईद मुबारक मुबारक ईद